It is now 7:30, and we would like to welcome you to the general session of the school board meeting this evening. Do I hear a motion to adjourn executive session and begin open session?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and we are now in general session. I would like to alert you that the district is in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act by notifying the media of the date, time, and place of the meeting. We also want to notify you that the district tapes this meeting for the accuracy in preparing the minutes. At this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Oswald for our invocation, please.
Let us pray. Loving and gracious God, you are indeed the giver of all good things, and we come together this day to seek your wisdom, guidance, courage, and strength. Be with us in our deliberations and help us to be wise in the decisions we make for our school district and for the good of all of those who have placed their trust and confidence in our leadership. Give us insight to lead with integrity, that our decisions may reflect what is right and good for each and every child in our care. Make us ever mindful of the true gift that you continue to give us every minute of every day, the power to love one another, as well as the power to forgive one another. Let us use these powers to make our lives, our schools, and our world a better place. And finally, dear Lord, grant us the humility to always seek your will in all that we do and say, and keep us ever mindful and thankful for your countless blessings. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald, for that beautiful invocation. Board Chair, I would like to notify you that we have an agenda in front of us. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Green. Are there any questions or comments regarding the agenda? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. Board, in front of you are the minutes. You have been provided copies of the minutes for the February 19th, 2019 regular board meeting and the March 5th, 2019 board meeting. Other than the corrections you've already provided, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of either one of those meetings? Hearing none, we will accept the minutes as accepted, count the minutes as accepted and received. We are now going to 7.0, which are reports and action items from executive session. The first one is our employment recommendations for the 2018-2019 school year. Do I hear a motion? Let's see. Do I hear a motion to approve?
One administrative position.
I know one administrative, but I'm sorry, it got really confusing in there. Do I hear a motion to approve one administrative recommendation for the 2018-2019 school year?
Madam Chair, I move the board accept the recommendations of Dr. Little for the one administrative position for the 2018-2019 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Green. Are there any questions or comments regarding that administrative position? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries, and it is unanimous. Board, do I hear a motion to approve 8 certified recommendations for the 2018-2019 school year?
Madam Chair, I move the board accept the 8 certified recommendations made by Dr. Little for the 2019-2020 academic year.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Green. Are there any questions or comments regarding those 8 certified recommendations for the 2018-2019 school year? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. Do I hear a motion to approve 2 administrative recommendations for the 2019-2020 school year?
Last but not least, Madam Chair, I move the board accept Dr. Little's recommendations for the 2 administrative positions for the 2019-2020 academic year.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. We now have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Green. Are there any questions or comments regarding the 2 administrative positions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. At this time, we will turn to the property contractual matter related to the relocation of Lexington Middle School. Board members, let's get the motion on the floor, and then at that point, we will open it up for discussion. I would like to remind our audience that Dr. Guyton has recused himself from this vote and it will not be participating. Board members, do I hear two motions regarding the relocation of Lexington Middle School?
Madam Chair, would you like me to read them sequentially or vote on one?
Let's read one, vote, and then read the second one and vote.
Madam Chair, I move that the board authorize the administration to enter into an option agreement related to two parcels known by Lexington County as TMS number 00430004048, containing approximately 27.9 acres, and TMS number 00430000455, containing approximately 0.47 acres with Triplo LLC for the purpose of relocating Lexington Middle School.
Okay, you've heard a motion from Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. At this point, I'm going to table the discussion. I am going to ask that Ms. Green read the second motion, and then, board, what we're going to do after all of the discussion, we will take the final votes on both motions at that time, if that's okay with the board. So, Ms. Green, will you read the second motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move that the board authorize the administration to enter into an option agreement related to two parcels known by Lexington County as TMS number 00430004016, containing approximately 23.57 acres, and TMS number 00430004075, containing approximately 10 acres, with Teresa W. Betzel for the purpose of relocating Lexington Middle School.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers. Okay, now, we're not going to vote at this point. We're going to open the floor up for discussion, and then at the conclusion of the discussion, we will vote on both motions. So I'll start the discussion, and Mr. Salters, will you give us an update on these parcels of land for the new Lexington Middle School?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. If I could direct your attention to the screen over here. I would like to highlight for you the location, first of all, of the current Lexington Middle School, which is located here, Sunset Boulevard, Abbey Lane, right here, intersection of really, major roadways in Lexington District 1, coming to a point there at Lexington Middle School. So the proposed property option that we're looking at, as you mentioned, there are two options. The first option that you read with the Triplo LLC is for this piece of land right here, and then this piece of land right here, this little triangle. This is Cherokee Trail, the roadway coming up to the intersection here, just down below Lexington Middle School. The second option is for these two pieces of land right here, this parcel here, and then this parcel here, owned by Ms. Teresa Betzel, and those parcels front on Old Cherokee Road. And so what we're looking to do with this site is to provide multiple accesses for our parent drop-off. As you're aware, any new construction, we have to follow SCDOT guidelines and also school facilities guidelines, and the OSF requirement is a minimum of 2,000 linear feet of stacking, meaning we have to be able to stack that many cars on our campus. And so this road frontage and accessibility from both sides, we hope to be able to partner with DOT to provide entrance for parents from both roadways, and then also provide significant stacking on on the property should the options be exercised in the future to allow for traffic to build up on our campus and off of the major roadways. The school site, early site, layout would be down in this area here, oriented towards most likely the Cherokee Trail roadway. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Mr. Salters, with this being entering into an option agreement, can you tell us what this will set into motion?
Yes, ma'am. So what this will do is it will start the due diligence period for this property, and of course, We have a number of things that we have to do and a number of approvals that we have to get, but we do environmental studies and approvals with DOT, traffic impact studies, and also approvals with office of school facilities. We also have, if the option is voted on tonight, it would start a 90-day clock that would allow us 90 days to do appraisals, commercial appraisals. We would conduct at least 2 commercial appraisals on the parcels, and then we have a window of that 90-day period to negotiate a price with the sellers, and then bring that price back to the board for action and authorization to sign an amendment to the option, so that we would then move forward with the rest of due diligence.
Can you give us a feel for kind of the landscape with respect to availability of land? Obviously, when the bond referendum passed, I was very excited, but finding 50 acres to build a middle school in this area made me very, very nervous of just being able to find a piece of land that we could, build a school on.
Sure. We have this wonderful tool that our county GIS department provides for us. And I'll just kind of zoom out a little bit. And in general terms, I'm looking at the Lexington Middle School attendance area. I can go out even further, but the parcels kind of turn off. And you can just quickly see that the larger parcels of land are very limited. Most of the areas look much like these housing developments. And so there's very limited availability of land of this size in the Lexington Middle School attendance area that would be available. So as you can see, we're already putting 4 parcels together to make a piece big enough. So it's very limited.
And there's a watershed through there, right?
Yes, sir, there is. I can turn that later on, but just for the essence of time, there is a watershed that runs through here on the Betzel property, and then there is a creek that runs along the backside of the Triplo property, and the town sewer easement is actually running right along that creek bed as well.
And then the roads are developed that would feed the school? I mean, they're paved roads?
Yes, sir. They're both paved roads, and of course we would work with SCDOT to do a traffic impact study as we do with all of our schools, and look at other roadway improvements that would need to be done. We would certainly be looking at some deceleration or acceleration lanes, to turn in and turn out movements for our buses and our parents on those roadways, but those are paved roads. And actually the bridge down here was recently repaired, and that roadway was opened. So you have a good new pavement section for a portion of the Cherokee Trail Road.
And I think we have to remind people, these cars and parents and students are already on the road going up to Lexington Middle School. And so by pulling the school closer into the neighborhoods, you're actually pulling some of the traffic off the main road in downtown Lexington. Would you say that's correct too?
Yes, ma'am. And as you recall, that the town is doing some improvements at this major intersection to help with traffic flow. And one of those improvements is to close the Dreer Street intersection leg of that red light. And so we will lose entrances off of the main roadway there into our school at the current Lexington Middle School site. And that's all in the spirit of improving the traffic flow through that area. And so it will help to have this campus off of that main intersection in town for sure.
And you say what's about half a mile, 3/4 of a mile to the new location?
I haven't clocked it exactly, but I would estimate it'd probably be about that. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Salters, water and sewer for
Available.
that location, it is available?
Yes, sir.
And this is the same building that we're building at Beechwood. It's the same prototype.
That is correct. It is the same prototype plan that we're building at Beechwood, and we're getting ready to start at Peelian Middle School.
Okay. Board, any other questions?
Could you just tell us how much road frontage there is on both of those roads?
Yes, ma'am. On the top side here, there's about 1,000 feet, and I think we just measured right around 750 or so, 775 on this side, when you include that little triangle piece.
Any other questions, board? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go and take a vote. And as you know, Ms. Green has already read the first motion, and so we've already had a motion and a second on the first one. So I tell you what, Ms. Green, let's go ahead and reread it again since that was a little bit ago and make sure we're all right on this.
Sure, it's only a few words, so I'll be happy to do that. Madam Chair, I move that the board authorize the administration to enter into an option agreement related to 2 parcels known by Lexington County as TMS number 00430004048, containing approximately 27.9 acres, and TMS number 00430000455, containing approximately 0.47 acres, with Triplo LLC for the purpose of relocating Lexington Middle School.
Okay, thank you. We now have a motion and we already have a second. So board members, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any opposed? Okay, and 1 opposed and 1 recusal. So I have 5 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 recusal. Okay, second motion, please. Ms. Green?
Madam Chair, I move that the board authorize the administration to enter into an option agreement related to 2 parcels known by Lexington County as TMS number 00430004016, containing approximately 23.57 acres, and TMS number 00430004075, containing approximately 10 acres, with Teresa W. Betzel for the purpose of relocating Lexington Middle School.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green, and we already have a second for that. So board members, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, we have 5 in favor. Any opposed? 1 opposed and 1 recusal. So 5 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 recusal, and the motion carries. And Mr. Salters, please go ahead and make a move on that land for us and see what you can find. Okay, board, at this time, it's honors and achievements. Dr. Little, will you step down, please? While he's stepping down, I'll start the process. We celebrate successes of many kinds during the honors and achievements portion of our board meeting. We recognize the significant achievements of our students and employees, as well as the contributions of and partnerships with our business partners and community organizations. Tonight's honorees include all-state band and orchestra students, among others, as well as educators who make a difference. We feature all of tonight's honorees in our Proof Positive newsletter, which I hope all of you picked up when you came in. And if you did not pick one up, there are extra ones out in the lobby. Please make sure you grab one. And please take any extra copies for family members that may not be here. Audience, you should know that if you try to follow along in the newsletter tonight, you may need to skip back and forth from page to page as they are not in the same order. In addition, we ask that you please stay until we finish recognizing all of tonight's award recipients, as each award recipient deserves our undivided attention. In order to accommodate our youngest honorees and their families, once we finish, we will give you a chance to leave before we resume, but the meeting's going to be really good, so you might want to rethink that one. And Dr. Little, you're stepped down. Will you help us recognize the award winners? And when you hear your name, go ahead and come on up and stand up here by Dr. Little as we begin to tell the audience all about you. We're going to start with South Carolina Band Directors Association, the 2019 All-State Clinic Band, the 2019 All-State Junior Band, and the 2019 All-State Senior Band. We begin with those 3 groups. Students from middle and high school bands auditioned for the 2019 All-State Clinic Band, Junior Level Band, or Senior Level Band selected by the South Carolina Band Directors Association. Judges scored students on performances of scales, sight reading, and a selected solo, as well as musical terms and definitions. During the weekend clinic, students perform their skills and rehearse with other top musicians from South Carolina. Let us introduce the SCBDA All-State Clinic Band and get a group photograph. They are from Lexington High, and I think I've heard this group might actually have a band concert tonight, so we may not have many of these students here. Cody Campen. Oh, I've got one. Zahari, is that right? Daniels, Catherine King, Katie Seitler, Garrett Spees, and Joanna Taylor. So let's give Cody a round of applause. Cody, we're going to get you to stay while we call the others up. So now from River Bluff, we're going to call up Megan Clancy, Kevin Liu, Kenna Morrison, and Christopher Unum. Are they here? Great, here they come. Great, come on up. And we'll go ahead and call up White Knoll High, Savannah Strickland. Is Savannah here? Well, while we take their photograph, I want to tell you that both Garrett Spees and Christopher Unum made first chair for tenor saxophone and baritone saxophone, respectively. Our students who performed with the SC, sorry, that's another category, so we'll stop right here. Did you get the pictures? Yeah. Now we'll go to the students who were selected for the 2019 All-State Junior Band, and they include Carolina Spring Middle's Emma Ballantyne. Emma here? There she is. Jack Bernard. Gilbert Middle's Scarlett Clamp. And Lexington Middle's Michael Clancy and Anna McCall. And Meadow Glen Middle's Rebecca Yu. And from this group, Jack Bernard made first chair for bassoon. So let's congratulate this group. Okay. Great, thank you. Now we're going to acknowledge the students who were in the 2019 All-State Senior Band, and they include Gilbert High's Chris Phelps. Is Chris here? There he is. Come on up, Chris. River Bluff High's Devin Maston. Devin here. Lauren O. and Allie Trotter. And then last but not least is White Knoll High's Christopher Eggleston. And we are proud to have all of these students represent our band programs and our district. Let's give this group a round of applause. Okay, Chris, hold on. We're going to get you to stay. So we're not through with Chris yet. If Gilbert High's Chris Phelps would stay up front, we want to recognize him for another honor. Chris is the only Lexington District 1 band student chosen for the 2019 All-State Jazz Band. Now, y'all, we have almost 26,000 students, and this guy's the only one. He's a percussionist, and Chris attended the All-State Jazz Band Clinic at Newberry College, where he studied under Jack Wilkins, Director of Jazz Studies at the University of South Florida School of Music. As a Gilbert Middle student, Chris earned a spot in the 2014 All-State Band, and listen to this, he has won a spot in an All-State Band every year since. How about that? And I'm not through yet. We got more, Chris. As one of the top chairs in this year's All-State Band, he also filled one of the percussion seats in the South Carolina Music Educators Association 2019 All-State Orchestra. So congratulations, Chris.
Now he's going to provide a drum solo.
Student musicians from 8 of our schools performed during the South Carolina Music Educators Association All-State Orchestra Weekend. Lexington District 1 students chosen by the judges include Carolina Springs Middle's Eki Mini Umano. Am I close? Come here. I want her to come up, and I want you to say, because I know
Ekemini Umana.
that's what I said. So can. We also want to recognize Gilbert High's Sophie No. Is she here? Here she comes. And Lexington High's Brooke Erickson, Connor Hewson, Paul Kim, and Raymond Lynn, and Meadow Glen Middle's Brianna Talton. There she is. And Pleasant Hill Middle's Aaron Kaufman and Leanna Kim. We also want to recognize River Bluff High's Matthew Chong and Olivia Cook. We want to recognize White Knoll High's Tristan Grosscoast and White Knoll Middle's Joshua Grosscoast. And the All-State Orchestra brought together students who have finely tuned their skills on instruments, including bass, cello, violin, and viola. Irmo High hosted rehearsals while students performed at the Lexington 1 Performing Arts Center at Lexington High for the culminating event. We are just so proud to have so many talented musicians across Lexington School District 1. And I have to brag a little bit. The board toured Carolina Springs Middle last Friday, and we got to observe the orchestra class. And I tell you what, there's just great musicians everywhere. So that was a real treat for us. Now we're going to switch to sports, and we have a state champion wrestler here with us tonight. Pleasant Hill Middle's Matthew Orofino won a state wrestling championship sponsored by the South Carolina Wrestling Coaches Association. An 8th grader, he competed at the Carolina Invitational Wrestling Tournament in the middle school category and won the 96-pound bracket. Matthew, who began his wrestling career while still in kindergarten, also runs cross-country for Lexington High and track for Pleasant Hill Middle. Let's congratulate this well-rounded sportsman. Okay, we're now going to move to staff recognitions. We're going to start with River Bluff High's Jessica White. Miss White received a scholarship in memory of a former professor and mentor. She received the Cindy Mackey Foundation Higher Education Scholarship named in honor of Winthrop University's Dr. Cynthia Furr and her daughter Mackey. While earning her teaching degree, Mrs. White studied under Dr. Furr. The Cindy Mackey Foundation offers scholarships to high school, undergraduate, and postgraduate students who demonstrate academic merit along with commitment and the desire to excel. It also challenges recipients to create a better future for themselves and others. Inspired by Dr. Furr's legacy, Mrs. White plans to use her scholarship to complete her master's degree and to grow as an educator. So let's give Miss White a round of applause. Teaching our students about smart financial decisions is a vital part of their education. Tonight, we recognize the Future Scholar Financial Literacy Program Educator of the Month, Forts Pond Elementary's Gina Mahoney. There she is. This award comes from the South Carolina State Treasurer's Office. Using the Future Scholar Financial Literacy materials, Mrs. Mahoney teaches 5th graders about needs versus wants and good financial habits. She began using the interactive program 3 years ago with the goal of making learning financial skills interesting and fun. Thank you, Mrs. Mahoney, for equipping our students with these ongoing life skills. Now we're going to move on to counseling. One of our school counselors recently completed the process to renew her national board certification. Gilbert High Director of Counseling and Advisement, Jennifer Adams, earned recertification in the area of school counseling, early childhood through young adulthood. Mrs. Adams joined Gilbert High this year after 3 years as Director of Counseling at Carolina Springs Middle. Created by teachers, the certification process uses national board standards, allows peers to review applications, and takes into account multiple factors of effective instructions. Candidates must reflect on their classroom methods and measure their mastery of subject material. They must also submit an extensive portfolio with videos of teaching, lesson plans, and student work samples. And if I can just interject, that's a lot of work. So we are really proud of you, Miss Adams. So let's congratulate Miss Adams. Okay, White Knoll High's April Farr took State Softball Coach of the Year honors. Whoa, come on up, Miss Farr, from the National Federation of State High School Associations. As head coach of White Knoll Softball, Coach Farr led the Lady Timberwolves to the school's first state title in May of 2018. White Knoll finished the season with 31 wins and only 2 losses, setting a new school home run record, and I want you to hear this number, with 44 home runs. Coach Farr also won the South Carolina Athletic Coaches Association Softball Coach of the Year and Region 5 5A Softball Coach of the Year. We wish Coach Farr and the Lady Timberwolves a lot of luck this season, and go get them. Okay. Angela Steele, an English teacher in the district's Alternative Educational Services program, attended the South Carolina Association for Middle Level Education's 42nd Annual Conference. A $250 micro grant from the University of South Carolina helped fund her trip. Is Ms. Steele here? No. While learning from sessions on student advocacy, leveraging student knowledge in diverse classrooms, and motivation theory, Mrs. Steele also presented a session called While I Breathe, I Hope, using mindful breath and movement to enhance learning. We salute her for obtaining this opportunity to gain and share knowledge. Thank you, Ms. Steele. Okay, the South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs acknowledges Hispanics who are making a difference, and we couldn't agree more with this next award. The South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs recently featured Lexington District 1 parent educator Gigi Towers on its Hispanics Who Are Making a Difference webpage, citing her excellent work reaching Hispanic families and empowering them to thrive. Her work helped the Parenting Center earn designation as a Parents as Teachers Blue Ribbon affiliate in 2017. She is a member of the Commission's Hispanic Latino Affairs Initiative Advisory Committee, which provides insight and recommendations to help Hispanic students succeed in school. We value her experience and agree she truly makes a difference for the students and families in Lexington 1. Thank you. Okay. Peelian High instructional coach Ashton Pageant received this year's Literacy Champion Award from the South Carolina Council of Teachers of English. Mrs. Pageant tirelessly advocates for positive change through curriculum decisions, program implementation, arts infusion, STEAM integration, and data dives. During her first year at Peelian High, she launched several positive changes, including the adoption of 2 new ELA curriculum programs and a comprehensive professional learning plan that supports all teachers and focuses on student engagement. We are thrilled to have this champion in our family of educators. That's great. Okay, our final staff recognition takes us to 2 teachers who brought physical fitness or a unique art project to their students. Carolina Springs Middle drama teacher Jennifer Simmons and Lexington Middle art educator Vicki Gadecki both received a $500 South Carolina State Federal Credit Union teacher grant. Ms. Simmons used her grant to offer Zumba certification courses to Carolina Springs Middle faculty, and the school plans to pilot an after-school Zumba class for students and staff this year with the goal of fully implementing the program next year. With Mrs. Gadecki's grant, she arranged to have Nancy Baskett, an artist in residence with the South Carolina Arts Commission, visit Lexington Middle to lead a 4-day basket weaving workshop. Students in 6th and 8th grade learned about the culture and history of Native Americans while weaving baskets made of pine needles. Thank you both for seeking out these grants in order to expand our students' knowledge in creative and entertaining ways. Okay, and we have a special guest with us tonight. We finish our night by welcoming Chris Wooten, a member of the South Carolina House of Representatives and a resident of Lexington. And I want to say he's also a parent of some Lexington 1 students. He is here tonight on behalf of the South Carolina House of Representatives. So we are going to pause and let him make his remarks, and we are so honored to have him visiting us. So go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to say congratulations to Nation 4 for being the second best high school in South Carolina, as River Bluff won first place in the Palmetto Finest. So give it up for the River Bluff folks, because I'm going to be feeding that school for quite a while. Next, I should have been here in January, but you guys started before in typical government fashion. We didn't start till later in January for School Board Appreciation Month. And then last month I was coming and my father passed. So tonight, as in typical government fashion, I'm 3 months late. I should work for DOT, but I am here. I want to do what no offense, I'm sorry. I hadn't been in politics long enough to clean that up. All right. But I do want to tell you. They get it. They get it. It's not the workers.
Everybody make a list of your potholes before you leave. Hand them to him.
But on all serious note, I'm not going to read this whole declaration every time, but on behalf of the South Carolina House of Representatives, I would like to honor each of these fine citizens on your board, or on our board, on the Lexington County School District 1 board, for their service that we are proud to have represent us in a very exemplary manner and service and all that they do for us. And this is a spot that really I didn't understand much like most how much these folks do and how much we really do appreciate them. So instead of going down to each one of them, call it. If you guys want to step forward, Tim, I'll start with you on this end, and we'll kind of feed through if that's okay. So first of all, Tim Oswald. And Jada Garris, thank you very much, Ms. Garris. Everything you're doing, keep it up. And for Dr. Brent Powers. And for Miss Cindy Smith.
Appreciate this.
I got this mic in my hand. Let's get a picture.
Thank you.
And for Miss Anne Marie Green.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for Mr. Michael Anderson. Thank you very much. Appreciate all you do. Thank you so much. And for the best doctor I know, Kyle Guyton, because he takes care of my children. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
I did not see Representative
we were out late debating something or whatever. Good to see you. Thank you, Dr. Little. Thank you all for all you do. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
On behalf of the board, I just would like to say that we are so honored to serve this district, its families, and its employees, and we really thank you for recognizing us, Mr. Wooten. So thank you so much. That meant a lot. Okay, I told you I was going to let you go. So now is the time tonight to thank you for joining us to recognize with the many honors and achievements of our students and staff and the generous contributions of our local businesses and all the community members. We love sharing our good news with you. Honorees, when you leave, if you will please head to the left and into the lobby where a member of the communications office will hand you a certificate to commemorate your evening with us. And just as I promised, you are welcome to stay, but if you feel the need, you are also welcome to leave. So
Nobody ever stays.
oh man. Okay, we're going to move back to our agenda. At this time, we're going to move to item 9.0, which I know a lot of people are very interested in this. This is the third and final reading for the Beechwood Middle Zoning Plan. And after the presentation following, let's see, we're going to, at 11.0, after citizens' participation, we will take a vote. So this portion is for information only, and then when we get to all the voting, we'll vote at that point in time. So at this point, it is information only board, and Mr. Salters will present the third reading of the zoning plan. Mr. Salters?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Little. Bring to you tonight the third reading of the Beechwood Middle School attendance lines. We're very excited about Beechwood opening up, and we'll show you some pictures of that a little bit later on. As you recall from previous presentations, we use a number of different rationale when we try to develop attendance lines for new facilities. I've listed those here, but one of the main things we're trying to do is make efficient use of our campuses and allow for student growth and permanent facilities where we can. And of course, in this rezoning, we're looking at providing reduced enrollment at Lexington Middle School and Pleasant Hill Middle School. And so I'll walk you through the current middle school lines. We have 3 middle schools in the Lexington area. So we've got Meta Glen, Lexington Middle, and Pleasant Hill Middle School. And of course, you'll recall that Beechwood Middle is opening up in this area up here. Roughly, 3,240 students across that group of schools. And so for first reading, we started out with an attendance boundary scenario that looked like this, where we had involved, Beechwood, obviously, over in this area, Pleasant Hill here, Lexington Middle here, and then Meta Glen in this area. The primary focus of this map that I would just show you is that this line here is the high school, the current high school feeder pattern attendance line. And so to the left would be Lexington High School, and then to the right would be River Bluff High School. And so this zoning scenario created true feeder patterns so that all of the students from Lexington Middle School would feed River Bluff, all the students from Meta Glen as well. And then all of the Pleasant Hill and all of the Beechwood students would feed Lexington High School. And just to go back quickly, that line basically runs right through the middle of the Lexington Middle School attendance areas. So currently that is a split feeder. So moving forward, we had a number of community meetings, received a significant amount of community input, which was part of that process, where we're very pleased with the input received. And the board, for second reading, saw an attendance line boundary that looked like this, where we basically leave the Meta Glen attendance area lines unchanged for 2018-19. Or from this year, they would remain unchanged for next year. Lexington Middle School would be this area here. We would use the high school boundary still for that creating that true feeder pattern. Beechwood would include around 900 students, and Pleasant Hill at 717. Lexington Middle School would be a little bit smaller at 623. However, we've already talked about tonight some of the traffic improvements in that area. All of that construction is going to be going on over the next couple of years. That's also going to be occurring at Lexington Elementary. So that whole area is going to have a lot of roadway improvements around it. So we feel comfortable with that number being where it is to help with the traffic flow in the general area. And so after hearing additional feedback and making considerations for the things that came in, we're recommending tonight for third reading those same lines that we had before, with Beechwood being in this area, Pleasant Hill again here, excuse me, and Lexington Middle School in this area. So this is the current Lexington Middle Meta Glen boundary, and so we would propose to leave that unchanged. A portion of Lexington Middle School would go into Beechwood, and a portion would go into Pleasant Hill Middle School. And So looking at some other options, this is the feeder pattern breakdown, if you will. The elementary schools would feed this way: all of Rocky Creek, all of Lake Murray, and a portion of New Providence. So if you if you look at this map again, one of the questions that we've been asked is, why does this dip down the way it does? Well, this is actually the Rocky Creek attendance area here. And so what happens to a lot of these folks is they're driving this way over to Rocky Creek. They would be very close to Beechwood, so we felt it was appropriate for them to drop their children there and then move on about their way to work or back home. And so instead of driving up to Rocky Creek and then back down to Pleasant Hill Middle School for drop-off, so that's why that dip down occurs on the map. And so moving to Lexington Middle School, portions of New Providence, Lexington Elementary, and Midway Elementary School would feed Lexington Middle. And then Pleasant Hill, all of Pleasant Hill, and then a portion of Deerfield and a portion of Lexington Elementary would feed those areas. And so we're looking at I've already talked about the true feeder. This third reading does preserve that feeder pattern. We feel it's very important to look at that at the middle and high school level as students transition. They really start to form bonds with the high school that they're going to go into, whether it be through athletic programs, through arts programs, or through academic programs. They identify with that high school and spend a fair amount of time in activities related to the school. So we feel it's very helpful for them to start forming those bonds early as a middle schooler in the 6th and 7th grade, and then on up into the 8th grade as they can continue to participate in some of those sports. So true feeder pattern in this third reading. And then we are recommending, again, the grandfathering option, so that if a rising 8th grader or current 7th grader would like to stay at the middle school that they are zoned for, they can have that option. And then the parent or guardian would provide transportation. And so we're looking at that. And then that would also hold true with our immersion programs that filter up. So just to kind of recap, there's some key dates that we've run through, and we're here to the bottom of the list now. This is just a highlight of all of the meetings and input that we've received. And that's brought us to this point, to our third reading. So I'll be happy to answer questions that you may have. And Dr. Little, yes?
Do you want to talk about some of the grandfathering options that we have? We have a special option.
Yeah, so
for this
if I could just go back to the map here briefly, there's an area of the Pleasant Hill, what would be newly designated Pleasant Hill attendance area right in this area here, where we have an option to potentially provide an additional bus stop. We have our alternative education services located at Rosenwald, and we run bus routes for those students. And we have the potential of creating an additional bus stop from the Rosenwald Community Learning Center over to Lexington Middle School. So we're looking at the potential of gathering students in this area at Rosenwald, and then giving them bus transportation over to Lexington Middle School if they couldn't drive. This would be for current 7th graders, and of course we would bring them back to Rosenwald in the afternoon. For current 7th graders, and this would be just kind of a one-year option to allow those students to grandfather if they so chose to do that. So that's one of the areas that we're looking at. We've looked at immersion in this area as well. There are actually currently 2 students in the who are now Beechwood Middle that are in the immersion program that would go to Pleasant Hill that have we've been notified by Pleasant Hill that they may have had some transportation concerns because they rode the bus in the afternoon. We've actually contacted those families, and One of those students, actually the parents are planning to drive the student back and forth, and then the other parent is an employee, and we're trying to work out some logistics there to try to get that child to either be able to stay at Pleasant Hill or to go to this other school where the employee works. So we feel like we've addressed the immersion program and also the grandfathering concerns that came up that you guys had us look into between second and third reading on those areas. So be happy to answer any questions.
I think we had some parents ask if we would hold like a tour or an open house, I think particularly at Pleasant Hill Middle. And I know that we have plans once Beechwood is closer to being ready, because it's not ready for a tour right now, that we were going to host an open house. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yes, the plan would be to host an open house at Pleasant Hill Middle School for those those families who are new to that campus. Dr. Rivers is very excited about that opportunity to showcase his school. And then there he is in the back.
There he is, Dr. Rivers.
Thanks for being here, Dr. Rivers. See, he's got a smile on his face. He's very proud. And then at Beechwood, you'll see from the pictures, we're not quite ready for a tour there. But later this summer, we would host an open house for those families who will be attending that facility in the fall. So we would be certainly interested in doing that.
That'd be great. And thank you, Dr. Rivers, for doing that. And Ms. Jenkins, I don't know if she's here, but thank you to Ms. Jenkins for hosting hers. Any other questions, board, or comments at this point in time? Okay, thank y'all. That was a lot of work. We appreciate all the work that y'all.
Yeah, I have a question. Have we received any feedback since February the 7th?
Since February 7th?
Yes.
I have received the information that was given to us at the last board meeting, a copy of a petition that was sent earlier. But that's, and then we've had some follow-up meetings about some of these areas related to concerns citizens have.
I've only had one email since the last meeting, and I believe all of you were copied on it as well. So that's the only communication I've had, just the one email. In board, anybody else? Okay, great. Okay, we'll take a vote shortly, but we wanted to get that out. The main reason we wanted to move that to that point of the agenda is because if anyone did want to comment on the zoning, we still want to hear from you, and this is your time to approach the board and let them hear your thoughts if you have additional thoughts. I know we have received lots and lots and lots of communications regarding the zoning, and we appreciate everybody that took the time to email, go out to the portal and submit a comment, or the groups that submitted the petitions. We really appreciate you letting us know your thoughts. The phone calls, I can see some people in here I've spoken with personally, and we all welcome that. We welcome anybody who wants to approach the board. So at this time, we will move to citizens' participation. I do have one card. Before I read the rules, is there anyone else who would like to address the board that did not fill out a card? Because we can get a card to you and have you fill it out if anybody wants to while I read the guidelines. Okay. So the Lexington County School District 1 Board of Trustees provides a time for citizens' participation at each regular board meeting. There are a few guidelines, of course. First, in order to speak, you must be a parent or a legal guardian of a student in Lexington County School District 1 or a resident and taxpayer of the district. Second, you will have 3 minutes to speak to the board. Third, you may comment on an agenda item, school operations, programs, policies, or other matters of concerns. However, you may not speak about specific individuals, whether students or staff. There are other ways to bring those situations to the board's attention. We want to give everyone who came here tonight to speak my one card. So for that reason, the board may not reply to your comments, and because this is a time for you to speak to us. We also ask that you not clap or make any comments either while an individual is speaking or after a speaker finishes. That does slow down our process. And is there anybody else that wanted a card? Okay, one more card. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead with the first card, and then in just a second, she'll get the other card up to us. So, as stated earlier, you should not expect us to reply to your remarks, although we may ask you a question if we feel the question is warranted. This is a time for you to tell us what you think. I'd like to call up Mr. Darrell Hudson, who is a taxpayer in Lexington 1. He would like to discuss the location of the new middle school. He lives at 156 Kellers Pond Lane in Lexington, South Carolina, 29072. And I don't believe, Mr. Hudson, do you have any students with us now? Or are all your children grown? Gone and grown. Okay, go ahead.
They all graduated from Lexington County School. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, no, you have to hold the microphone for recording
First of all,
purposes.
thank you, Chairman, Dr. Little, and the board. This will take hopefully less than 3 minutes. I heard about the location, which we proposed tonight, and I gave to Chairman Smith some thumb drives that I've done some research on. So you know, you all have been seeing traffic studies. You've all seen them in different hits and spurts. I've taken all that information and put it to one thumb drive. And that's from the city, from the county, and the state of what's going on 378, Highway 1, and District 3. I represent the district that you're bringing the school to. I represent, and I'm the voice of the people who live there, just like you're the voice of the people who voted for you. Old Cherokee Road, that area cannot handle the traffic. It is impossible. My question is, where do you live? Do you travel that road? Have you personally stepped foot on this property and seen where it's located? Everybody on the board. Then do the traffic study that's in that thumb drive. We can't handle it on 2 lanes now. I know Dr. Little's from North Carolina. We talked about when he came here, and he's done a great job. Y'all have done a great job about the walking paths and the riding paths and the bike paths and all the things that we need in Lexington, and I agree with him. But the state is not going to spend $1 on county roads for the next 10 years. It ain't happening. So the county doesn't have the money. So we can do all we want to do there. I with my heart, have you look at that location, because there's no money coming to the county for 10 years. They're doing intersections and interstate. We may get a piecemeal here or there, but the old Cherokee has been talking about a bypass for 30 years, and it's still not there. So I'm asking you for my citizens. The last thing on that thumb drive, that area you're talking about is growing 21% a year. That's the growth pattern, 21% a year. Well, if it goes 21% a year, next year is more than 21% because I already had 21% to it. That's the Lexington County math that I learned when I went to Lexington County School. So you all do a great job, and believe me, let me say this before I leave. No one knows how unthankful it is to have a job that you never get thanked, and I do. And if the biggest questions I have as a county councilman for Lexington County is school complaints. I don't have any control over the school board, and potholes on state roads, and I have no control over that. But I do have the control to bring the concerns of the citizens of District 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hudson. We appreciate you bringing those comments to us tonight. Okay, thank you. Okay. At this time, I'd like to call up Miss Constance Character Fleming. She has a rising 8th grader at Lexington Middle School, and she lives at 604 Hendrick Street, Lexington, South Carolina, and she wants to talk about zoning, I believe. So thank you, Ms. Fleming.
Good afternoon. Of course, I've spoken with some of you on the phone personally, but having been given this opportunity, I have to speak. I stand to represent a rising 8th grader. And after having conversations with her and some of her classmates, they are really concerned. They really want to stay at Lexington Middle School to finish it out, if at all possible. Mm-hmm. And we thank you for the recommendation that has been made to provide them with the transportation, if possible, because so many of them would not have it otherwise. Now, my daughter and I would be able, well, it would be a stretch for us with us working in different places and single parent, so forth, but we would make it happen, but so many of the others would not be able to do so. And I would just like for you to take that into consideration, and I thank you for that opportunity for us to go to Pleasant Hill. And but the thing about it is, as we all know, I don't care what the school is and where it is in this district, it's a wonderful school. You're going to get a wonderful education. So, I mean, that's not the issue. It's just the fact that these 8th graders would like to stay there. And I will close with one thing that was brought up that I didn't even think about. These rising 8th graders have had a number of administrators. And they had gotten very attached to Miss Nestor, now Miss Jenkins. Then, and nothing against Mr. Calhoun, you know, he has built this within them as well. And my granddaughter looked at me and she said, you know, then we have to go to a new school, another administrator for a year. We don't even get a chance to deal with that. Then the next year, we had to go to another school and deal with and the way she put it, and break in another administrator. So I just would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you as a group and to just kind of pass that on to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming. We appreciate you. Ms. Fleming is one of our teachers, and I can honestly say she is a Lexington 1 jewel, so we just love her. Now,
She was the music teacher at Lexington Intermediate School when I was in 5th and 6th grade there.
So she can claim all that credit, right?
I wish she would come up here and sing for us.
Okay, at this time, we're going to call on Miss Valerie Witt. She lives at 161 Broad Oak Lane, and she wants to talk about how do we decide on disciplinary action. So, Miss Witt, thank you for coming tonight.
I really just wanted to know.
You need to use the microphone because we're recording this.
I just wanted to know, like, what factors do you all use to help make decisions about how to discipline the students at the school? How do y'all decide, like, what type of disciplinary actions to take on your students?
If I can jump in here, I really think that probably would be the best discussion with you and Mr. Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell is over student services because reading your notes, I think it would be better if you could explain your particular, and we don't do that in here. We do that privately because that is your personal family. So, Mr. Caldwell, would you mind if I gave you this card with Ms. Witt's information and either probably call her tomorrow? Would that be okay, Ms. Witt? Or do you want him to call you tonight?
But I've talked to Mr. Caldwell, and he couldn't give me an answer.
Okay.
I've asked him, and he basically, I mean, I don't want to, go into detail, but he was not able to answer my question.
Okay. Well, maybe I could ask Dr. Little. Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming tonight. Anyone else that wants to address the board? Okay. We will move on, and thank you. We always love citizens' participation, and we appreciate you letting us know what you think. At this time, this, I think, is what everybody's here for, so we're going to move to our action items. 11.1 is the third reading for the Beechwood Middle School zoning plan, and as you've already heard from Mr. Salters and the board, he's already presented that. So, board members, you have heard the third reading of the zoning plan for Beechwood Middle School. Do I hear a motion regarding the recommendation?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the administrative team's Beechwood Middle School zoning proposal as presented at third reading.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers. Board, are there any additional comments or questions at this time?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify with Mr. Salters. I know I haven't received any feedback since February 7th. I know you said there was a couple. I was wondering if you could go into detail about what those were.
Yes, ma'am. What I was referencing was the petition that you guys had already received that I was handed to at the board meeting last week, or the last board meeting. And then we had some community meeting. We had a meeting with some community members. I don't mind saying that Ms. Fleming and some others with Dr. Little referencing some of the feedback on questions that you actually asked about in the last board meeting.
Mm-hmm. So it's my understanding through an email that there's going to be a bus that picks up that area from Focus and takes them to school and brings them back there.
We're looking at an additional stop on a route for a bus to leave Rosenwald Community Learning Center going over to Lexington Middle School. And then in the afternoons, we're going from Lexington Middle School over to Rosenwald.
Okay. When will that be? When we have an answer for that? If that's going to be an extra stop?
That's the plan right now.
Okay, because I just know on the PowerPoint it said no additional bus service. I just didn't want to
Well, can I clarify? So it said no additional bus routes,
Mhm.
and this is not a bus route. It would just be an additional stop to a route that already exists. That's the difference.
Okay. I'm just making sure they have transportation provided by the district. Okay. And so we haven't received any online feedback since February 7th.
Can you use the microphone, Ms. Hill? We can't really hear you. No.
I said we're not getting the traffic that we were getting after the second reading. So when we did the second reading and there were the changes made in second reading, that pretty much stopped the traffic.
So have we gotten any feedback since February 7th
Not
online?
since the second meeting, not since the second reading. The second reading is the one that's really stopped the conversation. I think most of their questions were answered in that one. And we have all that online, you know, everything that happened in the second reading is in both that blog.
Okay, I just said, like I said, I haven't received anything since February 7th. I was making sure nothing came in.
I think it pretty much stopped most of the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, board? Okay, hearing the motion from Dr. Guyton and the second from Dr. Powers, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. So thank you. And I just again thank Mr. Salters and his team and Dr. Little and Ms. Hill, because it was a lot of work to do a zoning plan, and we appreciate all y'all did to make that happen. We now are going to second reading for the 2019-2020 board meeting dates. Do I hear a motion to approve the board meeting dates as presented?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion from Ms. Green. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, thank you. We have a second from Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions or comments? I have a comment.
Ms. Smith, I was going to
yeah.
just make the comment that, as many folks know, beginning with this current school year, we added an additional board meeting each month. And as we've gone through this, it's been a little bit confusing, not only to community members that want to attend, but also to board members, or at least this board member, what time our meetings are, because the additional meetings start at 7, but our regular meetings start at 7:30. And so I would just like to propose that in the coming months, we maybe look into addressing that so that they're consistent, so that it's easy to remember what time our meetings begin.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Green. I believe that might be part of a policy, so we're going to ask Ms. Hill if she will pull that policy and review that for us. Just not really any discussion, just for the fact that when we come, we meet one meeting at 7 and one at 7:30, and just in general conversation, I think the board likes 7 o'clock. So if we could look at possibly presenting that to the board and making all the meetings start at 7 o'clock p.m., I think that would be something the board would be interested in pursuing.
We could certainly do that. In fact, the School Boards Association's model policy recommends you don't put a time in, because there are times that you have to
amend it.
Add a special meeting, and that might be 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or something, or a Saturday. So they recommend that overall you don't put a time in, and so we can certainly bring that model.
Okay.
And I think that's a great idea, because we do advocate for flexibility on a lot of things, and so having flexibility with our meeting times is a good proposal.
And I think we've been meeting at 7:30 since 1952. So we
Third
may have to
the
we may
third
have to
Tuesday
change
at
some
7:30,
some
right.
patterns for some people, but but anyway, it's always good to have change, isn't it? After however many years. So, board, tonight we are only discussing the dates that Ms. Hill presented to you. And Ms. Hill, are there any other comments you want to make before we vote?
The one thing that I would tell you is that even as we pass these dates, note that nothing is carved completely in stone, that the budget process in particular, and depending on what the scheduling is in the legislature, could cause us to ask for an additional meeting next year during budget season, or it could cause us to ask for a change. There could be some other unpredictability that isn't, but we would like to go ahead and get these dates out and on the website and out to principals and out to the media, who go ahead and put them on their calendars. So.
Ms. Hill, can I ask a question? And
Sure.
I can't recall if this was in the notes that you sent. But the September dates, those are only a week apart. And I know that that could be a hardship for staff, the senior leadership, as well as the board members. Is there a reason we couldn't push the second meeting to the 24th? Is there something that's standing on the calendar?
September 17th is the third Tuesday.
So that's our
So we
standard meeting
plot
date.
the third Tuesday ones first because that is part of board policy that you would have one on the third Tuesday. And then we're planning that second meeting really around that third Tuesday formula. So the question in a couple of months was, is it too close to have one? So you notice there isn't one every month, or is it a general election day, or is it, we consider all those other variables. And so it just happened to fall that way in September.
Also that, as you
Labor
recall,
Day.
September is the state of the district presentation. and
Right.
That's a workshop presentation that day.
Okay. Any other questions, board? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. 11.3 are instructional material adoptions for 2019-2020. It's for the computer science, grades 9 through 12, mathematics, 8 through 12, health, K through 5, health, 6 through 8, health, 9 through 12. And I'm going to turn it, we're going to put a motion on the floor first, Dr. Talley, and then we will have discussion. So do I hear a motion to approve the instructional materials adoptions as presented?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the recommendations of the District Instructional Materials Adoption Committee as district adopted instructional materials for 2019-2020, computer science 9 through 12, mathematics 8 through 12, health K through 5, health 6 through 8, and also health 9 through 12.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Oswald. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Are there any questions or comments, board, regarding this materials adoption?
Maybe Dr. Talley, can you explain how this process works?
Yes, I'm happy to. I think it's very important. Well, first of all, I want to say to the board, I'm thrilled to be able to bring a recommendation, particularly for math textbooks. It's been 7 years since we've been able to bring forth an adoption in the area of mathematics. Likewise, I'm pleased to bring forth a recommendation for computer science materials. I'm pleased that Rosemary Bianchi facilitated that committee that reviewed those materials, and Rosemary has been very instrumental on the state committee to help write the computer science standards. Likewise, Dr. Holly Sullivan facilitated the caravan for the review for teachers for science and health, and Hillary Morgan facilitated that caravan for our mathematics teachers for Algebra 1 and 2. So that's the process. We do have a committee of teachers that are representative of our schools in the content areas who review materials that are up for adoption. And these are their recommendations, and I review those. And of course, I'm not going to second guess our teachers. They're the boots on the ground. They know what materials we best need. Typically, board members always ask me when I bring forth these recommendations about, I'm looking at Dr. Powers especially, you always ask me, are these only textbooks, or are there online materials as well? And the answer is yes. We typically, in the past, have chosen a blended model. We do have a hard textbook, but we also have, and of course, the student workbook is a hardback, a paper copy, but then there are online materials, and the computer science materials are all online. And you'll see in there a lot of materials for Java, a lot of coding materials for computer science. I always say to the board when I bring forth these recommendations, this is contingent on state funding. But I've never been able to say in my 9 years in this district that we are hopeful about the funding because of some of the lottery funds. We hope that they'll be used for these purchase of these instructional materials. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Dr. Talley, NCS Pearson provides a lot of textbooks in this country. Or how many of these are NCS Pearson textbooks?
That's a great question, and if you'll turn to your packet, you'll see that the computer science applications for computer science 9 through 12, that's Pearson Education, Inc. Looking looking down the list. Also, mathematics, the Activity 1 for grades 8 through 12, that's a Pearson education product. Geometry is also a Pearson product. Those are the Pearson products.
And then, Dr. Talley, talk process. So obviously, once we approve this, then we start communicating, and it rolls out for next academic year?
No, actually, what we will do, if you approve tonight, then we submit our recommendations to the Department of Ed. And then once the funding is released, we'll purchase those materials. And then this summer, our teachers in the various content areas will start writing curriculum.
Okay.
And we have put in the budget monies. We do every year. Mr. Butler knows that. Every year we budget money for teachers over the summer to pay them to write curriculum.
I just think, we're all acutely aware of the teacher shortage, so just want to be respectful there and give them space to ramp up to this. So.
Absolutely. Great question.
Well, Dr. Talley, one other question. Maybe one other. The groups that select these textbooks from within our district, they don't just like Google great math textbooks. I mean, is there a list that's like provided from the state that we can choose from?
Yes, there are choices that the state recommends, and no, we don't Google. It's a caravan. I mentioned the word caravan. It's like a charrette. Jeff might call a charrette when vendors come and our teachers are very thorough in their inspection. Obviously, they're looking at standards. Obviously, they're looking at pedagogically how they feel like the materials will fit into their teaching model. One thing I would add, and I'm surprised Mr. Guyton hadn't asked me this question yet, so let me proact to it, and that is the health adoption. Many of you are aware that we have, since 1988, a Comprehensive Health Education Act, and that does require that we teach health, and more and more we are teaching social and emotional learning. And there's a need for that, you all know, in our current climate. We're dealing with an issue right now. I'm looking at Mr. Pender as he walked out. So we are required to teach these skills to our children based on that act. Another requirement in that act is that boards of education in South Carolina have to appoint a 13-member committee made up of community members, clergy has to be a part of that committee, parents have to be part of that committee, health professionals, teachers, and students have to be a part of that committee. So once we've adopted these materials, then that's part of the process, Dr. Powers, that we will select that committee, appoint that committee, and they will review those materials to determine what curriculum is appropriate to teach at a developmental level.
Dr.
I
Talley,
actually served on that committee before I was on the board. It's an interesting committee. I'm sorry, Dr. Guyton.
No, you're fine. What's the average lifetime of a book?
Well, we'd love to have
Forever.
newer books sooner than 7 years, but it depends. I mean, we have some books that are a decade old. It just depends on the funding from the state. I wish I could say, every 5 years we rotate, but I can't say that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then you said that the computer science, those were purely online material or online plus textbooks?
Those are all online.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well,
All online.
I think the lifetime of a computer science textbook would be 6 days.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
thank you.
Any other questions, board, comments?
Yes,
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, Ms. Mears.
You said a group of teachers reviewed the material. How many teachers and how were those chosen?
Well, they haven't used the materials, Ms. Garris, let me be clear. They have reviewed the materials. Now, they can look at lesson plans from those materials, but they haven't used them yet. So if I said that, I misspoke.
No, I said reviewed. I was just
Right.
wondering how many teachers made up that committee or whatever it is that.
Well, if I gave you an answer, I'd be wrong, so I'd have to get that for you. But it's probably 2 per school, but I can get that information. I can give you the list of all the committees. Be happy to provide that to the board.
Okay, that would be great.
Now, it is only in the content areas. So for in mathematics, it would be high school teachers and middle school teachers, because we do teach Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So I'd be happy to provide that to the board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, board? Okay, we'll take a vote. We already have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of adopting the instructional materials as presented by Dr. Talley, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. At this time, we'll move to 11.4, which are student travel requests. Do I hear a motion to approve 8 student travel requests as presented by Dr. Talley?
Madam Board, I move that Madam Chair, I move that the board accept the 8 student travel requests as presented by Dr. Talley.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers and Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions or comments regarding these trips that are planned?
It's short notice, but I'd be happy to chaperone the Italy trip with Gilbert in 2 weeks. So if they need another chaperone.
I'll let them know that, Ms.
Please,
Payne.
thank you. Yes. And I'd recommend that Mr. Anderson go to Paris Island.
Okay, any
I
other
will be happy
questions
to
or comments,
vaccinate
board?
Mr. Anderson for any shots he may need.
What did he say? Oh, gosh. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the 8 student travel requests as presented by Dr. Talley and the schools, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. At this time, we're going to go to 12.0, which is the superintendent's report, and 12.1, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Greg Little. Dr. Little?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We do have some fairly significant presentations to do tonight, and so I want to make sure we have plenty of time to do that. But I would like to just briefly say how proud we are of the students and staff and the stakeholders at River Bluff High School for being named Palmetto's Finest today. Just another incredible distinction for Lexington School District 1. I believe that the rising tide raises all ships, and so it's so exciting for Lexington, because it's really a Lexington 1 designation, and so exciting to be recognized as one of Palmetto's finest. And we just keep doing good work. So what I'd like to do now is, I believe Mary Gaskins, you are up. We want to talk about provide the board with a leadership development update. And then we wanted to also provide a Project Hope update. Now, I want to talk very briefly, just when I say very briefly, like 30 seconds or less here, about why we're doing these 2 this month. Is coming up, we're going to do the strategic plan update, and these 2 these 2 topics are the strategic portfolio topics that are part of the update or part of the strategic plan. So these are the 2 issues that we wanted to raise to the surface, and we wanted to make sure it had the time and attention it needed, put it on the front burner, and then as part of our strategic plan. So this is the really quick, we want to be agile, flexible, all those things around these 2 particular topics in particular. So, Ms. Gaskins.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Dr. Little, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to give this update on leadership development. In the evolving development of the Executive One leadership program. So we have a good many projects right now, either in design or in the beginning implementation phase, that will all converge into a very comprehensive executive leadership program that reaches leaders across the system. So I'm going to give you an update tonight on several of those projects. So Dr. Little asked back in August of 2016, what if we did something different with assistant principals? That was really the most immediate need at that time in terms of leadership development, because we saw a lot of kind of impending openings in the principalship and knew that we would be really strategic to have folks ready to take those positions. So our first kind of stop on the journey with leadership development began with the Aspiring Principals Academy. And you see here cohort 1 of the academy from last school year. Of these 8, 4 have already been promoted, 3 as principals, 1 as a central service leader. 2 of them have new assistant principal placements this year to growth until they await a principalship. So you see hard at work here, the Aspiring Principal Academy cohort 2. We have 9 participants in the academy this year. Am I doing something wrong? We have 9 participants in the academy this year, more of an elementary presence than we had last year. more of an elementary presence than we had last year. And one of these 9 has also already been hired as a principal at Meadow Glen Elementary School. So we're really proud of that accomplishment as well. We are not going to have a cohort 3 of the Aspiring Principals Academy next year. We have already had 17 assistant principals go through the program and are going to take next year off, continue with some really concentrated leadership development with our assistant principals, and hopefully pick up with an additional cohort the following year. So the Aspiring Principals Academy really began a ripple effect in terms of leadership development across the district. We wanted to be more intentional about how we developed all of our leaders across this system. And we really learned some essential lessons from the Aspiring Principals Academy. One was the importance of really naming what we expect successful leaders to look like and sound like in Lexington School District 1. So the leadership standards were a really important part of the program. The standards allowed us to give very specific feedback and allow the aspiring principals to write targeted growth goals and us to provide support around those targeted growth goals. So we took really all of the successes from the Aspiring Principals Academy as we designed our leadership continuum and standards. So with that in mind, we have designed a leadership continuum as well as leadership standards for 4 key leadership roles in the district: teacher leaders, assistant principals, principals, and central services leaders. And the goal of the continuum is to really create more equitable learning outcomes across the system. So regardless of where you serve and with whom, you really have access to leadership growth opportunities and the support related to those. We also want to retain our high-performing leaders. We know if we don't grow them, they will go. And so we want to offer them growth opportunities here in the district. Using the standards and these growth opportunities, we want to create more transparency on how you develop as a leader in the system, as well as how you advance to other positions. Above all, we want our staff to really own, engage in, and commit to their own leadership development. So this continuum has now been shared with all of our assistant principals, and central services leaders. We had a huge kickoff in the fall, and they've been really unpacking these at all of our team learning meetings and principals meetings this year. They have been introduced to teacher leaders at our schools by members of the Teacher Leadership Council. So those are the folks who are sharing these with teacher leaders, and we're getting a lot of input from our teacher leaders about what excites them with the continuum, what concerns them, and what support they think we'll need to provide as we roll the continuum out to a full implementation phase. So this year has really just been about learning. With that in mind, we are piloting the leadership continuum and standards at 6 of our schools and 2 of our central services departments. So that looks like leaders at all levels using the leadership standards to do a self-assessment, really name areas of strength they can leverage in their growth, as well as some growth areas. They are then writing a leadership growth goal and an action plan, and each leader has a coach who provides them feedback as they are sort of living out that action plan. In January, we had team training for all of our leaders. All of our principals in the pilot schools are being coached by Van or Ryan. The principals are coaching the assistant principals, and each assistant principal is coaching at least 1 teacher leader up to 3 teacher leaders. Here at Central Services, Dr. Little is coaching Mike and Mary Beth because those are the 2 departments piloting it here, and Mike and Mary Beth are coaching members of their team. So most people in the system are both a coach in this process and a coachee, which is really neat in terms of building that culture of feedback where we learn to both give and receive growth-based feedback. So Kimberly Freeman mentioned last board meeting about the work that our Teacher Leadership Council is doing. So alongside the work of the curriculum, we have a working group of the Teacher Leadership Council really helping us rethink what teacher leadership looks like across our district so that we can be more consistent. Again, those kind of opportunities regardless of where you lead. So we have surveyed at the beginning of the year all of our current teacher leaders to sort of see what the current state is and to really set some growth goals in terms of how we want to grow. Using all of that data, the working group has spent the last few months creating sort of a current state analysis and determining what some consistent roles and responsibilities might look like across the district. They've sent that out to the entire Teacher Leadership Council, and it will go out to more teachers and focus groups to get additional input, and then we'll decide what the selection process will look like and what our teacher leaders will need in terms of professional learning and support. You see them here, hard at work, going through all of the data and dreaming and scheming. We are doing much more intentional, I mentioned this earlier, leadership development with all of our assistant principals, with the goal of all of our leaders being strong instructional leaders and being prepared for the principalship. So we've done a lot of common learning for the past 2 years. Right now we're doing differentiated learning strands. So our assistant principals were able to self-select into one of these 3 learning strands. We have one group working really on a deep dive into data and how they lead a continuous improvement cycle in their school. We have another group working on relationships management and engagement, taking a really close look at our discipline data in that group and how we engage students and proact some of our discipline problems. And then one group really thinking about how to coach teams and build capacity. And we're finding a lot of success with this model because our assistant principals are meeting in smaller groups to do this work. They're vertical groups, so we have leaders from all levels and kind of a small, comfortable learning setting, and we're finding a lot of success with that. We're going to be surveying them to get more information about what this leadership development needs to look like next year.
And if you don't mind, is that the general cadre of skill sets that we look for in our assistant principals to complete a team at a given school? I presume that's intentional.
It is. So our goal here was to really focus on instructional leadership. So in our leadership standards, we have a couple of them that have been focus standards for us this year against our new 4 system commitments. And so these are really aligned with those standards and our system commitments that we're focusing on this year. And yes, it is a skill set we want all of our assistant principals to have. So here you see all of our new assistant principals for this year. Another leadership project that is in design is an induction program for all of our new assistant principals and principals. We're designing a 3-year program. Right now we're really focusing on what year 1 should look like. We will have a 3-day onboarding experience in the summer for all of our new leaders beginning this summer. All of our divisions at Central Services, with input from a lot of our current new principals and assistant principals, have named all of those things that leaders need to know before day 1 in order to not get themselves in trouble. So the Summer Institute will consist of all those technical skills, but really a lot of the adaptive and kind of thinking that leaders need to do around some very complex issues. So that will happen this summer. All of our new leaders will have the support of a mentor in a ROLA-like situation. So APs will have an AP mentor, principals will have a principal mentor. Our principals will be coached by Van or Ryan. Our assistant principals will be coached by their mentor principal, and they'll have some cohort support also throughout the year. So again, all of this is aligned to our new leadership standards, so we're all in pursuit of the same sort of competencies in terms of our leaders. So because we have all of this work in design and we're going to be doing a lot of leadership development in the next few years, we trained 18 school and district leaders in really adult learning theory and effective facilitation strategies this fall, and we've used them a lot in our planning, and they will be helping us with the leadership development as we move forward. So a lot of exciting work, and as I said earlier, it's going to all come together into this beautiful thing called the Executive One Leadership Program. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I just want to say the recommendations that Dr. Little's been bringing forward for the promotional opportunities, they're just such high caliber people. So I think you guys are doing a great job in turning out true leaders for our students, so thank you for doing that.
Thank you, and there are a lot of hands in that work, many, many hands. So
it's exciting when we see
is.
the people that are coming across and what the opportunities they're going to have. So, Board, any questions or comments from Ms. Gaskins?
I just have a question. How does the New York City Leadership Academy fit into this?
So they are one of our partners in terms of designing a lot of this. I'm so sorry, I keep forgetting. I have a loud Loud Teacher Voice. We partnered with them for our Aspiring Principals Academy design. They had designed like 33 other pipelines across the country. And so they helped us design that and have helped support us through the design of some of these other projects. So we've taken a capacity building approach. Our goal is to not need New York City Leadership Academy anymore after we get into the design of this. So they've helped us get it off the ground, but we actually selected them because we could take a capacity building approach and own all of the content in our district.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Was
Yeah.
How long do you think we will continue to use them?
I think we are decreasing our support from them next year, maybe a little more the following year, but we are very close to being ready to fly solo.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've heard wonderful things about that. I believe Ms. Poole went last summer, was that correct?
Yes.
And I mean, she just raved. And she said it was the best learning opportunity experience she'd ever had in her entire career.
Wow.
And I thought for her to say that, that was spoke highly of that program.
Absolutely.
Well, and I just want to thank Dr. Little. You know, one of the things we've engaged him on is making sure that the initiatives have practical benefits to the district. And I can tell you, as we've reviewed administrative recommendations for hires and had to approve it as a board, that's palpable. And so, you know, we're starting to see some of the results of this, and that excites us, obviously, as a board. So.
Well, and I'm always very impressed with the conversations about all of the leadership programs that we have going on. In particular, our acknowledgement that developing leaders is something that you need to be purposeful about. You know, I mean, you can just say, oh, well, they were born a great leader, and then throw them into a position that they're not equipped for, or that is outside of their experience level. I mean, you know, a kid might be a great baseball player. That doesn't mean they skip practice.
Right.
And so I really, the intentionality of all of these levels of leadership, with all really the single focus of being better equipped to serve our students.
Right.
I mean, that's why we're doing all of this.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's very impressive, just the amount of time and energy and intellect that has gone into developing this. So I really appreciate that.
And I'll tell the board, one of the things is every time we feel like we've answered a question, it really just, we end up with like 2 or 3 more questions.
We're chasing questions.
So what you see is really a byproduct of that, and we're not done. I mean, we're going to continue to work on that and get better at it each and every year. Thank you so much, Ms. Gaskins.
Let's give Ms. Gaskins and her team a round of applause.
All right, Mr. Caldwell, update on Project Hope.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Members of the board, you, in your setup, Dr. Little, used the word quick. Is that a relative term?
That's correct. No, it's always quick. Remember?
No.
Presentations.
I won't be Mike Stacy long, but I'll be. I don't know that I actually realized until hearing Mary's presentation that I've heard her present many, many times, how much what she talks about actually dovetails into what we're doing. And while it may sound like it's 2 separate entities, the reality is the training that we're getting for the aspiring leaders and the soon-to-be expiring leaders has been nothing short of phenomenal. And I talk about that from a personal perspective of the growth that I think that I've seen and I've experienced, and the attitudes and opinions that have changed me, having been a part of the New York City experience and the things we're doing in-house. So I think because of that, it led to a change in an attitude, not just in student services, but across the board. And I think some of that's going to be reflected in the data that I show you here tonight. And that's the end of that presentation. Sorry. So before there was Project Hope, we were having conversations separate and didn't realize how connected they were. At the end of the 16-17 school year, I was very frustrated with the number of drug and alcohol offenses and how those kept happening, and we kept doing the same things, and we kept getting the same results, and then we scratched our heads and wondered why that was happening. So we were looking for a different, better way of doing business. At the same time those conversations were happening, unbeknownst to me, there were Tracy Pender and his group and other folks were talking about social and emotional health and what a growing phenomenon, or maybe I could even use the word epidemic even. And he and his team and his folks were really beginning to explore the why things were happening. In student services forever, we dealt with the what. And this is what happened, and this is what we're going to do. And we didn't do a lot of service as far as looking into the why. At that same time, we were also having some authentic conversations about truly repurposing what we then called focus. It has been a couple of names in the past, but nothing had really changed other than changing the names and maybe some time frames, but we really wanted to look at a more therapeutic approach to students who had unfortunately made the decisions that landed them at that facility, and how we might be able to better serve them and better transition them back. And then all of a sudden, one day, the skies opened, and I realized all of these three things weren't separate entities, but they were really three pieces of one big thing that we have come to call Project Hope. And if you remember from the schematic that we used, the triangle, it was the three sides, obviously, as the triangle is. One being the repurposing of our alternative educational services, the social and emotional health, and the student management, specific in this case to drug and alcohol offenses. So that's the history lesson as to how we got to where we are today. At this point, I'm going to turn to Mr. Pender and let him talk about the social and emotional update part of Project Hope.
Madam Chair, Board, Dr. Little, bring you the social emotional update we got going. So the first one is Lexington County School-Based Mental Health Therapist. If you recall, by the end of next school year, our goal is to have a Lexington County school-based therapist in every last one of our schools. Phase 1 was the first state schools, and I'm pleased to tell you that as of March 18th and April 2nd, we have our last 2 hires for the first phase. So the Pillion area and the Gilbert area will have the final 2 therapists placed for this school year. So we'll have that taken care of. So we'll have all that done. I'm talking Lexington County Mental Health right now. We're having to do some repairings due to Beechwood about numbers. So we're doing the repairings, and they're hoping to start posting by May so that we can get ahead of the game for next year to get those positions placed, and so they can be in place for us as we open up the next school year to get them in place as soon as possible. And that's where we're at with that. Our mental health wellness teams, if you recall, this is a mental health structure. We'll have a coordination of services. We'll have a team at each school that spends 5 to 10 minutes looking at a child's need, everything that negatively affecting the child, and the team will decide, what are we doing for the child? What's the appropriate things for the intervention, 504s, IEPs, Lexington County Mental Health, life changes and outside referral. Are we covering everything we need to do to help that child and that family, social work referral? So the team will meet, they'll discuss that, they'll make sure we've done the right assignments, follow-up interventions in classroom, and that team will make sure we coordinate all the services, everybody's on the same page. Right now, I'm in the process of setting up training dates to train all the schools so that we're ready to fully implement this at the start of the next school year. Our senior leadership team has already approved the procedures, our confidentiality agreement, and the referral form, and anybody can make a referral. It can be an outside agency, it can be somebody who walked up and said, I got a problem with a child. So we got that covered, and we'll do that. Along with Lexington County Mental Health, Life Changes, and Sexual Trauma of the Midlands are the 3 agencies we have memorandum of agreements with. They can come into our schools and do counseling with our students. Life Changes is our major entity we work with for referrals for traumatic situations, trauma, and intense counseling. They work 24/7, weekends, holidays. They go into the house multiple days a week. They come into the school multiple days a week. This past week, they briefed the senior leadership team on exactly what they're seeing and what needs to be done as they go out. They've done 166 referrals since October with that agency, and they're really helping us understand what's happening in the home so we can better serve the student in the school, because we're building that gap between them. And of course, the 2 major issues they hit is sexual abuse and with substance abuse. So we're looking at that. And I have to even admit, tonight, they're even working for us tonight as we work an issue. The Life Changes is right there working with us tonight, even as we deal with an issue. So they've really been an asset to us as an agency to work with. Our Community Crisis Response and Intervention Teams. This is a South Carolina initiative. It was just recently put in place by the Department of Mental Health. And what they now have is they have 2 therapists and law enforcement that when they have somebody who's going to hurt themselves or others, the team can be called, and within 60 minutes, the team will respond to wherever that person's at. They'll do an assessment. They have a judge on standby that they can automatically get an order to place that person in a mental health facility. So that's available to us right now. We can use that. We're partnered with Lexington County Mental Health. During the school day, we use our Lexington County Mental Health, or I coordinate with Lexington County Mental Health for schools that don't have it. And then for after hours, they're available to us, and we just use the service today at one of our schools. So it does work to have that team come out and do that judge's orders. We're using that as another tool for us. Our suicide risk assessments, we are on pace to exceed the numbers we had last year. As we know, that issue is still in the media, and of course, suicide for young people 8 to 12 has had a dramatic increase across the nation, so it's not just here in South Carolina. Of course, Lexington County is #2 in the state with completed suicides for that age level too, so it's something we always keep track of. But I want to caveat that, remembering our suicide risk assessments.
So say that one more time.
We're #2 in the state for completed suicides for youth 8 to 12.
Lexington County 1 or Lexington County?
We're #2.
No.
The
school
county,
district,
Lexington
the whole county.
County.
Okay.
The county.
Okay. Wow.
Not our district. The whole county. Sorry. Suicide risk assessments. I just want to remind you that every time we do that, that is an intervention. And for many kids, that's a chance to talk, to express their feelings, to talk about those protective measures. So the tool itself is a help for all the children, help them do that. So that's a good thing. What we're doing as school counselors, we're having coping skills lessons at all levels, where we're actually going in and talking more about how to cope with issues, because we're losing that connection to how to have coping skills. So we saw that need. We've increased our coping skill lessons in the classroom. The other thing we're doing is helping students express themselves without using inappropriate trigger. Instead of getting angry and saying, I'm going to kill myself, we're helping them use language while I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm red, and using something other than the words kill or die, so that we can make sure that we're properly assessing those who need help and not using the inappropriate triggers when it's not appropriate. And of course, our final step with the Project Hope on the social emotional, Dr. Holly Sullivan and I, after we get the mental health wellness teams up and running, we'll start looking at the classroom curriculum, doing with NOMNI and with South Carolina Mental Health of South Carolina, doing some classroom lessons and having presenters come in. We'll establish that curriculum and enhance that. That's our final step in the project. That's my update. Any questions for me?
Yes, do we have a counselor at Focus, AES?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We have a counselor and a behavior interventionist at Focus.
Okay, and they're there full-time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
That was impressive. Board, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm not through. I have a few more things to talk about. I'm sorry.
Oh, you said you were going to beat Mike Stacy. I don't think you are. Go ahead. No, this is great, so keep going.
I want to throw a few data at you, and I'll preface this by saying these data are a little over a week old. We actually prepared this for a DLT meeting, so I didn't update the numbers, but it'll give you the essence of what we're talking about. And I'm looking at the data particularly specific to what was called Focus last year, what is AES this year. The number of students attending AES or last year Focus, meaning not currently, but at any point during the school year. At this point last year, compared to this point this year, we are down on about 39%. So the number of students who have attended is down about 39% overall for the entire school year. Currently, if I look at the current enrollment, or as current as it was when we pulled this data a week or so ago, the current enrollment is down about 23%. So we have less students there now. We've had a good bit less over the school year. The drug and alcohol offenses, as I told you, was the impetus behind my concern about how we're handling student management issues. The Project Hope probation, as we call it, you'll recall that as I've talked to you over the months about what Project Hope means, is a student with a first-time drug and alcohol offense will oftentimes be offered an opportunity to go back to their regular school on probation with some sanctions, meaning that they will go through counseling, the family will go through counseling, and they will have to agree to 12 months of random drug testing. I will tell you that the overall drug offenses, and I can't really pinpoint the why for this, but it's a good why. The number of drug offenses are down 39% from this point last year to this point this year, meaning school year. Of the ones who have had a drug or alcohol offense this school year, there have been, I hesitate to give numbers, but I tend to use percentages because I don't want to inadvertently identify anyone, but I think I'll be safe saying this. We have had, at the time that I pull these data, 54 students who were recommended for expulsion because of a drug and alcohol offense. Of those 54, 34 were allowed what we've called the Project Hope probation. So it's not a rubber stamp. Not everyone gets it. The hearing officer looks at the totality of the circumstances and makes a determination as to whether or not it's a AES placement, an expulsion, or back to school on probation. So 34 students have been allowed to go back to school. Of those 34 that we've put into the Project Hope, 27 of those students are still in good standing. So 7 students, for one reason or another, did not meet the requirements of their contract, and so they're not a student in good standing. But the 27 who are have not had a positive drug screen. Their grades and their attendance and all those things are in good shape, and they've gone through or have finished the counseling as well as the family. So that's our baseline. I don't know if 27 out of 34 is good. It's about 79%. That's our starting point. The hearing trends, just a few more bullet points. The hearings in general at this point compared to last year, we're down about 10%. So as our enrollment has gone up, we've had about a 10% decrease in the number of hearings. Probation trend, meaning the number of students that we've allowed to go back on probation, that has almost doubled, and that's a good thing. Now, part of that is the 34 or so students that we've allowed to go back that were drug or alcohol offenses. But I think the hearing officer takes a much more deliberate approach and really looks into not just the what, but the why. And even though a student's brought for expulsion, maybe their best placement is back at their home school with some different type of interventions there. So those numbers are trending the right way. Recidivism, meaning the students who have gone to AES, going back to their home school and returned, is down about 75%. Now, that's a little bit of a misleading percentage because the number is very, very low to begin with. But very less than 5 students have had to go back to AES this year, having been there already at some point. So our next steps, a few things that we are already looking forward to tweaking and working better with. Our transition of the students back to school, particularly in the academic arena, we're still having some situations where students are not transitioning back academically as smoothly as we would like. So we don't want students to have to suffer or lose credits if at all possible. So that is much better than it used to be, but there are still some situations where it gets a little tricky to transition them back. The students, once their time is complete at AES, we don't wait for some artificial date. They go back at basically the next day, but we're still working on that. Student advocacy, we have a great advocacy program at AES, unprecedented as far as the district goes with the amount of mentorships and the adult advocacy at the school, at the alternative school. We want to be sure we continue that, when the students return to their home school. We have teams that go out to and visit the students from their home school. They'll visit the students at AES. We want to continue that when they return. Tracking students, what I mean by that is when the students do return back to their home school, we want to track them to make sure that their grades are adequate, that their behavior is better, their attendance is good. One of the way to do that, and that gets a little tricky because the students are going back, not at any set time. So we'll have students that are rolling back into their regular schools all during the school year. But if we can improve the mentor opportunities, which is the next bullet, then if we have an adult assigned to those folks, and I had a meeting today with my team and some other folks in the district to talk about some mentoring opportunities and growing that program for next school year. Mr. Pender's already talked about the need to keep moving forward with our mental wellness support. Good news that we've got everybody hired for this school year. We'll move forward and get the 7 hired for next school year. And the last bullet here is we need to talk and begin to have serious conversations about interventions K through 12. We spend a lot of time talking about AES. I'm very proud of that. It is grades 6 through 12, ages 11 and up. And we are finding that the behaviors are becoming more and more severe at a much, much younger age. And oftentimes we are not equipped to address those needs. And so we need to have some very deliberate and serious conversations about what we do in situations, much like probably what Mr. Pender and others have been dealing with just this evening, to be sure that we have the type of services that we can for all of our students, not just the ones who happen to have an opportunity to go to our alternative school. So with that, do you have any questions? I'll be glad to answer those.
The only feedback I'll give you is I know as we talked about Project Hope, we also talked about security in our schools, because most of us know violence in a public setting is linked to some type of mental disorder. So as we continue to look at the effectiveness of Project Hope, it'd be good to get feedback as a board about violent events or risk or at schools, because my guess is you've probably also seen a halo effect and improvement in that space, which I think needs to be articulated.
I absolutely agree.
We had what we call our provider summit this past winter, where we brought all of our providers together, and unfortunately, one of our bullet points was suicidal risk assessments, and how we handle that, within the pediatrician office. And so everything that you're saying here is exactly what we're seeing in the community. And I would absolutely encourage the K through 12. It's not a middle school and up problem. Countless number of 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds who are just, it's tough being this age right now. I can tell you that right now.
Agreed.
As parents, we don't know what to do. It used to be you could go to your parent and say, how do I parent through this? We're finding that parents can't do that, because we're in the informational age, we're in the social media age, and so kids can't leave things at school anymore. Things follow them to home, and they don't know how to deal with it. And as parents, we don't know how to deal with it. And so it's not a trickle-down effect, it's a trickle-up effect.
Board, any other questions or comments? I just want to thank you guys, and thanks to y'all and your teams, and to Dr. Little for identifying this and pulling it out and really focusing on it. I think our entire board is pleased that we've got this focus now.
Thank you.
Dr. Little?
Before we leave that, I just want to thank Tracy and your team, and Jeff and everybody as well. Our kids are dealing with some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to need to support them in lots of different ways. And this is another good example of what happens when you start asking the right questions. And often those right questions keep leading to more questions. And so just to say, I would say both of these strategic portfolio projects are works in progress. And we will continue to work on them until they become standard operating procedures for us. And then as we approach the next strategic plan, we may not have these issues in there, or they may change and look differently. And so thank you again for all of your work. And I'm just sitting here thinking about what we talked about on Monday, and about when life changes were coming in, and talking about some of the stuff our kids are dealing with. And so we want to, love them, hug them, and grow them, and help them in lots of different ways. But it's not just academics. It's a lot of things that we have to support kids on and their journey. And so we're going to keep doing that. So anyway, we'd like to transition to our operations update. And Mr. Salters.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Members of the board, I'll certainly be brief, try to beat Mr. Caldwell's time there. 3 minutes, I'm getting told. All right, we can click quickly. Plans or pictures here tonight of Beechwood Middle School. You can see we have roof on all of the building, which is very exciting. Of course, just to orient you, classroom wings here, main office here, cafeteria in the back, media center, learning common space here, and then we have our gymnasium and our little theater here in the front. I'll just kind of take you on a little fly around of the site. That's the front entryway. You can see the road, the main parent drop-off roadway is in place, or are being put in now. Main parking lot will be here. Oops. Another side view there. You can see that the storefront glass is in for the auditorium lobby entrance. This is a kind of a rear shot with there would be the courtyard, cafeteria here in the back, gymnasium on the left. And then another shot from the classroom wings over here on this side. The great thing that you see in these pictures is there's not a big piles of mud everywhere. We've actually had some decent days, and I told someone on the job site today, since the pollen has come in, it probably won't rain for a month.
Yeah, just big piles of pollen.
Now that we're begging for rain to clear the pollen. Here's a view of the storefront glass being installed there at the auditorium entrance. That's kind of a further out shot of that.
And how many will that seat?
It's about 450, maybe a few more. There's ADA seating as well included in that. And this is a shot, again, of the front entryway and the classroom wing off to the left. This is a shot of the storage building in the rear of the campus. And actually, I was out there today, and it's been closed in now and basically almost finished. They made good progress there. Here's an interior shot of a classroom. Very excited to see the VCT tile flooring going down. See a lot of light coming in to the space. We've got the tile flooring down in one of the wings, and moving on to the second classroom wing now. This is a shot of one of the water coolers there, and you can see some of the tile work around it that has been installed. And this is a shot from the second floor. You're actually looking down. The media center is here on the right, main stairwell here. And what this is the terrazzo being laid out. The lines and seams in the terrazzo are being glued down before they actually pour it. So that's really good news. That means they're making a lot of progress on the flooring. And here's a shot from that same stairwell you just saw looking back the other way. That's the main entry. That glass will be going in probably next week. So hopefully we'll have those in the pictures coming up soon for you. Here's a shot of the cafeteria or the back classroom wing right beside the cafeteria. You can see the terrazzo has been poured. It has not been polished yet. That'll come later in the schedule. Here's the cafeteria, and you can see that terrazzo has been poured in there. This is the serving lines in the cafeteria. It has the blue tile. Flows with their colors, and all of the floor tile has been installed. It's just covered for protection as well. Whoops. And then this is a shot of the gymnasium where they're painting the gym, which is really good. The duct work is up. That's real good progress. We'll have power on in there in the next few weeks, and then we'll get our flooring in, and it'll have to acclimate for a few weeks to the temperatures and humidities before they can put it down. So very excited about the progress we've made over the last couple of weeks. We are on schedule again to open in August, and of course with the lines tonight, we've got some students to put there, so we're looking forward to that. We are really working hard on our other projects in the referendum program, and I'll be excited really in the next couple of months to start bringing you pictures of some of those other projects as we get contractors involved in that work. So a lot of things going on.
When
Happy
do you
to answer any questions.
anticipate getting that certificate of occupancy for Beechwood?
We hope to have the CO, probably early June is what we're looking at. Have the office staff move in there, and we'll have furniture moving in probably at the end of May, that kind of thing. So
maybe we could go around the end of May, 1st of June, maybe
Sure.
after graduation. We could schedule a trip for the board to see it then.
Sure,
That'd be good.
that'd be great.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Salter's board?
Do you want to chat about the Pillion and Gilbert timelines?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we are obviously very excited about the kickoff of the Pillion Middle School relocation, and we've got the plans already designed, and the construction management at risk contractor on board, and we anticipate doing a groundbreaking out there for the board in early May. We've got some preliminary work going on with the contractor and the Lexington County and DHEC. We're waiting on some permitting that they, obviously require for us to have. And we're waiting on that. As soon as we get that, we'll start, going out there and clearing and ready for a groundbreaking. We're excited about Gilbert, elementary number 17. We are working with the Gilbert schools right now, the primary school and the elementary school, to get feedback on potential names for that facility, because elementary number 17 just doesn't work too well. And so we're looking for potential names, and we are going through a process. We'll be meeting with their school improvement councils next week, and look to bring names to the board in April for you to take action on at some point in the near future, so that we will have a groundbreaking on that site as well in early May. And it's scheduled to open in August of next year. So looking forward to a lot of things really kicking up here in the next few months.
Okay, anything else, Dr. Little?
That's all that I have. Well, I'm sorry, no, that's not all that I have. I'm sorry, excuse me. The first reading of our tutoring for pay policy, if you'll recall, a few months ago, we had a concerned citizen about tutoring. And so I took that policy and brought it to our principals, had our principals work through it, really had some conversations with our senior leadership team, but really tried to capture the principals about what we wanted to accomplish in that policy. And I believe you have that. Dr. Talley, do you want to add to that?
Sure, Dr. Little, thank you. Board members, I have provided you in your packet a copy of the current policy for tutoring for pay, policy GCRD. I've also provided you with a red-lined item. I would ask you this month to look at that red-lined item. Send me any questions that you might have, and I'll bring it back next month for a vote.
Yeah, and I will add, I think maybe the biggest change between the two policies is the concept of the teacher of record. So just pay attention to that, and we can certainly have more conversations about that next month.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Little. Thank you, Dr. Talley. Board, if you don't mind, before we adjourn, I just want to go over a couple things. Mr. Hudson mentioned that he had a thumb drive for each of us. It is located in the boardroom next to the coffee pot. There's a handful of them. So if on your way out, you'll grab one of those thumb drives that he mentioned. I also want to thank Carolina Springs Middle for hosting us last Friday. We just had a phenomenal tour there. What those students are doing and what those teachers and administrators are doing is just incredible. We have a tour this Friday at Lexington High School. I hope the whole board can be at that tour, because I saw Miss Rawl this morning and she's excited about us coming. And I'm going to take a point of privilege and thank my friend, Miss Freeman back there, and the TLC team. They invited us to Policy and Pizza, and it was an absolutely incredible night. How many people turned out, Miss Freeman? 152. Wow. And we had a wonderful legislative delegation turnout, and I've seen posts on Facebook and talked with them personally, and they were thrilled that they got to interact with our teachers. So thank you for making that happen. So, Board, is there anything else before we adjourn? Hearing none, I will 13.0 or items for your information. There's information only. 14.0 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second? Was that Dr. Guyton? He was quietly said that. Thank you, Dr. Guyton. All in favor, please stand up, and I believe it's unanimous. Thank you. Great meeting.